You can, if you want, you can sit over there. It doesn't matter. I'm going to edit this video.
Okay.
So it's up to you. This is my first time doing this with the video. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Glenn Alpert. Just to introduce myself, I am almost complete with my MBA program here at Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, and this program, the Entrepreneur Development Program, or EDP, was started because I felt that there was a need for more entrepreneurial activities, and that there aren't necessarily some very good or very cohesive methods from getting from your idea or having an interest in entrepreneurship to actually getting into the market and starting your business. So I felt that there was a gap between the idea process and the getting started process. And so the purpose of this is to kind of fill that gap. It's based on my own experience doing a startup over the last 2 years and incorporating things that I learned in the classroom from doing a lot of reading, a lot of research on my own, and then experimenting. So here we go, we're going to start. So our theme for the first week is becoming an entrepreneur. So what was your name? Isi. So we'll make this a little bit of a conversation. So when you think of the term entrepreneurship, what comes to mind to you?
Someone who's risking everything for a mission, purpose, idea.
Okay, so someone who's risking a lot.
Yeah, risking
right?
a lot. Yeah. So
The-
it started.
What do you think that they're What is it that you think they're risking?
Honestly, everything. I think entrepreneurship is not just money anymore. It's time, your social life, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. The term entrepreneur, I think, is interesting because there's probably a strict definition for it in the dictionary, but there's some people who believe being an entrepreneur means you have to create something new. It means you have to do something, you're innovating, you're doing something that no one else has done before. An entrepreneur to someone else their image of it may be, I'm going to the local farmer's market on the weekends and I'm going to sell vegetables that I grew in my backyard, or I'm going to bake cookies. I have a child who's a teenager and they're going to go bake cookies and they're going to sell at the local market. So everyone has a little bit different perspective on what an entrepreneur is, but that's what we're going to explore a little bit today. So tell me a little bit, what are some projects you're working on, or what are some things that you're working on right now?
Sure. Right now I'm working on a blog, but I'm trying to figure out how to transition into more so social marketing. Like, I'm good at content writing, but I don't know how to monetize that.
Okay.
Yeah, and promote stories and people's experiences and their mission.
Okay.
How to get them connected to the right resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one concept that we'll talk about, actually we started in the next session, but there are several phases that I've identified for entrepreneurship. The first phase is the theoretical phase, which means that you have ideas and you understand how those ideas can be implemented. The second phase is what I call commercialization, which means how do I take that skill set that I have and how do I commercialize it into the basis for a viable business? How do I take my writing and my desire to write blogs or desire to write content, but then transfer it into something that people will sign up for, will subscribe to, and I may be able to promote things for monetary value other than just interest. Or maybe it's that you attract readers, but then you want to sell advertising, or you want to then partner with other people. And then the final phase is your production, which is then, now that you've found your way to commercialize it, now you will actually deliver on the promises that you made, or you will implement all those phases. And then over the theoretical commercialization and production, you have your strategic management, which is how do you manage all those processes, how do you keep track of everything from a higher level. So those will be the subject of the future presentations. But this is just the very basis. So if you are just at the point where, hey, I want to get started, where do I start? That's what this first lecture is for. Okay, so we'll start with a quick video.
Welcome to the White House. We have more than 20 countries represented here today, so to those of you visiting for the first time, welcome to the United States. We have a lot of brain power here. We've got innovators and investors.
We have Barack Obama
business
doing our
leaders,
introduction.
entrepreneurs. We even got a few sharks. Mark and Damon and Barbara, they were having a chance to talk to some of these young entrepreneurs, and the young entrepreneurs, I think, decided they were pretty nice sharks, as sharks go. I want to welcome Senator Coons, who's here and a great champion of our engagement with Africa, and I want to thank Secretary Penny Pritzker, as well as our Small Business Administrator, Maria Contreras-Sweet, and all the leaders from across the administration for their work to empower entrepreneurs like you. We're here today because we believe in the power of entrepreneurship. The basic notion that if you've got an idea, and if you really work hard, and you're able to pick yourself up, if you stumble a couple of times, you can eventually turn that idea into a reality. And this matters to us because encouraging the spirit of entrepreneurship can help us to tackle some of the greatest challenges that we face around the world. At a time when we're still working to sustain the global economic recovery and put people back to work, helping folks to start new business can spur broad-based growth here at home and around the world. At a time when the world is more interconnected than ever, we've got unprecedented opportunities to help more people access capital and resources and networks that they need to succeed. At a time that we're facing challenges that no country can meet by itself, lifting people out of poverty, combating climate change, preventing the spread of disease. Helping social entrepreneurs mobilize and organize brings more people together to find solutions. And entrepreneurship breaks down barriers between cultures and between faiths at a time when we need more than ever the capacity to understand and work across
We're just going to do the first 4.5 minutes.
And no one understands this better than our young people, like those of you who are here today. I do have to say, as a quick aside, I feel kind of old hanging out with you. You know, I used to think of entrepreneurs as kind of old, grizzled people, and now I'm the old, grizzled person, and the entrepreneurs are all young, and so a very extraordinarily good-looking group of entrepreneurs. But more than half of the world's population is under the age of 30. In some countries, it's an overwhelming majority. And yet, there are also countries where youth unemployment can exceed 35%. And when so many young people don't see a future for themselves, they don't see a path to success, it holds the entire nation back. It's a recipe for instability and conflict and violence. Around the world, we've seen how violent extremists are exploiting and tapping into these frustrations of young people who feel that they've got no opportunity to improve their lives, and what they offer are dead ends. And yet, if these young people don't feel that there is a positive path for themselves, then they're vulnerable. Poverty alone does not cause terrorism or sectarian violence, but investments in youth entrepreneurship and education are some of the best antidotes that we have to that kind of disorder. So all of this matters to us, to our shared prosperity and to our shared security. And that's why from the very beginning of my administration, I've elevated our support for entrepreneurship to make it easier for young people and people generally to start a new business or a new social venture.
Okay. So as you can see, even Obama believes it's important, so we know we're onto something here. So, interestingly enough, in entrepreneurship, there's something that I call the paradox of entrepreneurship. Barack Obama would love to see the room filled with young, successful entrepreneurs that have built businesses, that have done the impossible, that have created these companies. However, everyone that is successful at some point has to be just somebody with an idea. And so, despite all of the great things that we would like to see, that Obama spoke about, what if I am just a young person who's sitting at home, watching this video, and I think, wow, I have an idea, but you know what, I'm probably never going to meet Obama, I'm probably never going to meet anybody from Shark Tank, but I have these ideas, I want to do something with it. So one of the first things that happens is that you start telling people that you have ideas, that you want to do things. However, if you tell people, some of them may actually give you a negative reaction because they've known you for so long. So they may say, oh, that's nice, or oh, that's great, I hope you do really well, or that's going to be hard, that's going to be difficult, that may not work, I don't want to see you, you're somebody that I care about, or it's a family member, I don't want to see you waste your time, or I don't want to see you give up a stable job or other employment opportunity to do this when I know you can do all these great things. So the point is that before you're successful, people don't often see what your potential is. They just look at what you're doing now. But guess what? When you become a success and your name is up in lights, then everybody will come out of the woodwork and they'll want to be a part of your business, your company, your venture. And so the trick is, how can you get around the fact that there's this paradox that everyone wants successful entrepreneurs. Large companies want innovators. U.S. government wants youth to create new ventures. But how can you succeed when you're the one that's going to have to drive the process maybe without a lot of help right at the beginning? When you're successful, help is easy to find. So the first thing you'll want to take into account is how you set goals. And so when you begin the process, especially if it's the first time you've ever done it before, you want to be very, very conscious of every decision and every choice that you're making. A lot of times, if you've had jobs, you've had a career, or you've been in school for a while, a lot of habits and behaviors and beliefs that we have about ourselves and what we do are pretty much unconscious thoughts or unconscious behaviors. They come from other people we've been around, our family members, people we used to work with, previous colleagues, previous workplaces. The first thing you need to do is really a self-assessment. You have to basically take an inventory of yourself, understand what skills you have, understand what personality qualities you have, understand your strengths and weaknesses. One of the hardest things to do actually, but most important, is to identify your blind spots. So a blind spot is just like you're driving along in a car, you look at your back mirror, you look at your side mirror, everything's going fine, and then boom, car hits you. How did that happen? Well, it was in your blind spot. It's the angle that you can't see. So one of the hardest things to do is to figure out what it is that you don't know that may be holding you back in your entrepreneurial journey. And that takes some self-reflection and some thought in order to discover those. So we'll get into more what some of those blind spots or sticking points could be later. You also want to become more aware of how you learn, your own learning process, your own learning style. In an academic setting, there are certain best practices and standards for learning certain types of material, but as we'll see in a bit, when you're learning in this setting, it's a lot different, and it should be, you have to understand how you learn best so you can learn lots and lots of information quickly and then use it very quickly, instead of wait till you've earned a degree over several years, or wait till you've risen to a certain level in a company in order for you to showcase your skills. Also, you'll want to set some personal goals and understand what makes you excited, what makes you interested in going through this process, other than, well, I heard somebody else was successful, I'd like to do this too. You have to find what's in it for you, because if you're successful, it will be a long journey. The journey to success is long too. So you're going to need something that sustains you along the way. So now, risk versus reward. Typically, there's a big stereotype about entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship. Especially, I think a lot of the entrepreneurial culture that I've read about and that I've seen in the US actually comes from the West Coast, comes from Silicon Valley. It's really the original, where the original tech entrepreneur idea came from. And really, it goes like this, is that you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, you're going to build something, you're going to build a technology device, you're going to build a product, or it could come from Shark Tank, which is a little bit of a stereotype. You're going to build something, but then you're going to go to the market, or you're going to open a store. You're going to invest your money, and then you're going to go to the market, and then you're going to find that either people didn't want it, they wanted something different, or some dynamic change that all of a sudden disrupts your business and you can't control. So the problem is that a lot of people have experienced that. And so when you go out and talk to people, that's a lot of the negativity comes from people that made mistakes in the past. So your objective as an entrepreneur is actually not to take that risk, but it's actually to reduce the risk as much as you possibly can. So it's like if I blindfold myself and I walk around this room and I don't know what the territory is, chances are I'm going to bump into everything. But if I wanted to walk a room without bumping, what I might do is I might cover my eyes and take one step forward at a time, and then I'd feel out around me. And then I'd take one more step forward, and I'd feel out what's around me. So really, the key to being having a better chance of success is that every small step you take is feeling out what's around you, so you don't bump into anything or step into any holes. If you rush forward too quickly, you're more likely to make a mistake. Hopefully, that doesn't knock you out of the process. But there will be a point which you do take progressively larger risks for larger rewards. But you want to make sure you've really felt out those steps first. So before we even start, a lot of what we're able to accomplish in the world has to do with things that are up here, right? So this is basically an explanation of all the way from who you are as a person to the things you can do that you're capable of. So at our core level, we all have a spiritual side. This lecture is not about that, but everybody has a belief system of what the universe is, where we come from. What's interesting is your spiritual beliefs actually shape your identity. Your identity shapes your values shape what you're capable of, your capabilities affect your behavior, and then your behavior translates into your immediate environment and what you choose to do with your actions. So what you want to do is just take inventory so you're aware. In most workplace settings, a lot of this is not really necessary or needed or discussed, because this is kind of, once you get up here, it's more personal. And so what you do have to do is you have to understand from a personal perspective who you are and what you believe in and what you stand for before you can start to take inventory of what your skills and your capabilities are. And that translates directly, very, very directly, to, as an entrepreneur, what you're capable of accomplishing. So I'll give an example. Somebody whose let's say that they came from a family where, let's say their father was just a random example, a door-to-door salesman in say the 60s. And during the 60s, that was perfectly common profession. Today, not so much. But if you grew up in a family where this is what one of your parents did, you probably don't have a problem cold calling, knocking on doors, meeting new people to sell them or to present your ideas. But if you grew up in a family where, say, your parents were professors or teachers, this type of behavior may be scoffed at, frowned upon. However, I'll say in entrepreneurship, that's a very valuable skill, being able to knock on doors and not worry about rejection or people not talking to you. So the key is that each level affects the level below it.
So would you have to start with spiritual before you do anything else?
I would recommend, if you're going to take inventory of yourself, so to speak, start at the top and then work your way down. Because then you'll see how, what you want to do is understand how each layer connects to the one above it or below it in the sheet. So now we're just going to go through one at a time. I'm skipping spiritual because it's a personal thing. Everyone's entitled to their own sense of spirituality. So we're going to start at identity. And this is important because, like I said, we all have a different background. We're all raised in different family environments with different types of family members and parents and cities and countries. So what you should do is you should just write out what I call your story, how you arrived at the point where you are today as a person. In other words, what beliefs do you have about yourself? And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I've never raised any form of funding or any form of funds or money for a business, or really personally either, other than student loans, etc. But so it's not really within my belief system that that's a normal thing because I haven't really done it before. However, I attended a business forum a few weeks ago where the speaker was a prominent business person in the private equity industry, and basically what they do is he goes around the world, around the country, asking people to contribute to their fund so they can buy whole companies and portions of companies, raise their value, and then sell them later for a profit in return to their investors. He actually didn't have any experience doing it either before they founded their company. But something interesting that he said is, if you have a really, really good product to offer, or a good service, but if you have a great product, then you're actually doing them a favor by asking them for money. Because as investors, or as people that want return on their investments that's higher than the markets, they're looking for people that have connections to a business opportunity that's going to get them their return. So because I heard this person speak, that got inserted to my belief system. But because I've never done it, I didn't hold that. So now I'm much more likely to be very comfortable and be perfectly willing to go out and do that, whereas before I didn't believe that about myself because I didn't have the experience doing it. So again, what's your education, your professional experience? It's more than just your resume. You basically want to just take an inventory so you know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you also want to think, what have you done in the past that could hold you back? So I think a common problem with a lot of young people, including myself starting this, is if you're in your early career, chances are your first job or first several jobs, you've been in kind of an entry level like analyst, research assistant, or junior level person at your company. The issue with that is when you become an entrepreneur and you start on your own, you are the management team, you are the head executive, and that way of acting and that sort of framework of talking to people and behaving and thinking about your business is not at all conducive, it's not at all connected to what you used to do before. That can be a big challenge, is overcoming, wow, I feel like I was down here in my big company. How in the world can I present myself as someone who's now a business owner or an executive of my own company? So it's identifying those things that's helpful as you move forward.
Well, how would someone in that situation present themselves in that way after being junior level?
Part of it, there are two, I'd say that there are two aspects to it. One is I believe that I'll be getting to that also, either in this presentation or another presentation. One has to do with your belief system. One has to do with your skills. So if you don't have the skills or the experience of doing something, you won't have the belief system that is normal to you. And when you don't have a belief system where doing a certain action is normal, when you try to do it, you will probably appear a little nervous or a little hesitant or a little kind of incongruent with the role. But there's only one way to kind of do it, and that's just to do it. Right. It's just kind of like jumping in the pool if you've never, right. At least jumping the shallow end if you've never taken swimming lessons before. So, but and that's part of the journey. So now your values, identifying where do your values actually come from. Your ethical framework. This is very important because people may decide whether they want to either work with you or somehow be connected to you in your business venture, or work for you or advise you based on your ethical and moral framework or decision process. So you may be asked questions about what would you do in a certain situation, how would you respond? And so oftentimes these are things that are part of a company mission statement if you're working in a large company, or you're just expected to adhere by certain procedures or certain ways of acting. But entrepreneurship is different in that people will immediately judge you or whether they're going to affiliate with you based on how you behave, not necessarily the work that you produced, but you as a person, which is a little bit different. So again, as I was saying, if you start to take on a role that is new for you, just think, what's the worst case scenario that could happen if you do something that's out of your comfort zone? But on the other side of the coin, what's the best case scenario? And really, you have trying new things. That's the beauty of it. If you think about most things, you have nothing to lose except a little bit of time. Now, putting money on the table is a different story. But as far as adapting a new belief system, you realize a lot of it is just perceived, like I said before, perceived risk, or it's just a new thing. So just things to keep in mind here about your value system. So. And there's probably some video editor that I can download, right? Or
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's recording.
Okay. I'll just start.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
I'll come back down when I'm finished.
All right. Or just let me know. I can bring the hard drive up here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. So now onto your capabilities. You want to make sure that you take an inventory of what you're good at, what you can do, because you're going to spend your time creating something new, creating something innovative. So you want to make sure that you know what you're good at. So one thing you can think about is when you were younger, when you were a kid or when you were an undergrad, what did you enjoy doing? What was fun? What made you be more creative? You want to identify what areas that you're strong in and what areas you're weak in, so you know where to spend your time, what to focus on, and what not to focus on. You want to make sure that you are aligning your personal, your professional goals with what you're good at. You don't want to end up setting a goal or an objective in which plays your weaknesses. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot of effort on areas that are not going to be helpful for you. Your behaviors. This is our next level. Understanding we all have situations in which we don't respond well. And what happens is when people are in situations that they don't respond very well in, they tend to avoid those situations. So in a sense, people become weaker and weaker at those areas. For example, public speaking is one area. If you're not good at public speaking, you're probably going to avoid situations in which you have to speak in front of a group. Dealing with conflict or conflict management. If you're not good at dealing with conflict or it makes you uncomfortable, you're going to avoid situations in which you have to resolve conflict. And you're going to be less and less able to do it as your skills in that area, you lose the ability to do that over time. So you want to make sure that everything you do is going to be based on your values, your beliefs, your identity, who you are as a person. Think about if you have things that you feel like are unproductive or things that really may hold you back in your entrepreneurial journey. Take inventory and just think about where these may have come from. May have come from your upbringing, may have come from your friends that you had when you were younger, or just bad habits that we all develop over time. So take a moment to think about this and develop an inventory. Now on to your environment. Who are some of the positive influences that you have around you? Your influence is basically your surroundings. So you may decide that the moment you decide that you have an interesting idea or you would want to become an entrepreneur, let's say for example that I live halfway between Baltimore and Washington DC, and I wake up one morning and I have an idea that I am interested in a socially conscious nonprofit that I want to start that has a mission to help underprivileged children excel in the arts, for example. I wake up the next morning and I realize that the people that I want to meet with are all based in DC, where there's funding by nonprofits, government agencies, grant-making institutions. And so I wake up the next morning and I realize the people that I want to meet for coffee or have informational meetings with or just want to chat with are not based around where I am. Whereas before, when I was working for a company that was around the street or around the corner from where I live, or if I was working from home, my location and where I live didn't matter. And all of a sudden, if I want to start working from home as my home office, if I have, there's too much noise or I have too many noisy roommates, all of a sudden these environmental factors are going to start to affect you and your business, whereas before, they didn't really matter to you because it just didn't matter what was in your surroundings. So identify what puts you in a positive state of mind in your environment, and what in your environment would put you in a more negative state of mind. And then you want to try to reduce or eliminate the negatives and amplify the positives. Thinking about the future. We don't know the future. We don't have a crystal ball where we can look into the future and understand what will happen. It's not something that we're capable of. However, we do know that the actions that you take today will shape your future and the future you want to create for yourself. You can't look at what will happen to you in the future, especially as an entrepreneur, when there's so much unpredictability, based on your past experiences. You can't base it on who you are, where you came from, your family history, your academic history. Maybe you didn't get the best grades in school, or maybe you were a 4.0, you had a 4.0 GPA, but you may fail in business. You can't base it on the types of jobs you've had, the types of career you've had. You're really embarking on a completely new journey where your past does not determine your future. And this is very empowering for a lot of people because you can have a situation where you may have been unsuccessful in many other things, but then you try entrepreneurship and you find great success. Or you may believe in yourself, you may have a lot of success in other areas, and then you try entrepreneurship and find that it's completely not your thing. So the key is that you can't use your past to understand what could happen to you in the future. If you continue to have the same mindset and use the same skills and the same mentality as you've had in other work or professional settings, you will get the same results. In entrepreneurship, you've got to learn new things. You're going to meet new people. You're going to learn new skills. You're going to be in new situations that are going to be out of your comfort zone. But this is the name of the game. You have to be willing to get out of that comfort zone, put yourself in situations where you don't know what's going to happen. And the most you will do is you'll learn from it. Whether something is a success or a failure, there's never failure unless you learn, if you're learning. And that's the idea of having a continual learning model where every event, every moment that goes by where you learn, where something happens, the idea is you take what you've experienced and then you learn from it. So the second time it happens, you're more prepared. Onto your personal resources. If we all had $1 billion, I have news for you. $1 billion will not start the next great company. Actually, ideas start the next great company. However, it takes someone to bring those ideas into a format that is now usable and that you can deliver on and that you can manage. So first of all, your time. This I call the ultimate resource. If you can manage your time well, you can manage other things well. Your time, your energy, the way that you think, understanding how you think, your thought process, not something we think about too much. Taking inventory of the people around you, the people you have access to, the people that you would like to meet that are in your field that you have the ability to meet and spend some time with. Your own knowledge base. If you happen to be an expert on satellite technology, I would highly suggest if you're going to become an entrepreneur and start, have an idea, use your strengths. Start something off in satellites, not on something that is completely unrelated. Your skills, and of course your starting point with your financial resources. You've got to budget your time, your opportunity cost, your personal finances, just to know, so you know where you stand when you start the process, so you don't make any poor choices. Time, the ultimate control mechanism. The one thing that we all have as an available resource to us, regardless of where we've come from, is our time. You should be scheduling your week out in advance if you can. I recommend using a spreadsheet. You can use some color coding systems. I personally break my week into 15-minute chunks, and while I'm not perfect in sticking to the schedule every minute, I'm able at least to plan out in advance what I plan to do that week, and what I plan to work on, my priorities. If you don't manage your time, it will be very hard to manage anything else. Things will spill over, tasks will spill over into other time blocks. You're going to not get the most out of your time, which you can't get back, and you won't be as productive. The interesting thing about time is that if you fail to control your time, in the future you will have less control over your time. The reason is you're going to get dragged into other obligations or other commitments which you don't necessarily want to have to deal with, but because you're not organized, you have to deal with them. However, the more you control your time, in the future, the more control you'll have over your time. Because you've structured yourself, you're now more organized, and so you've set up your life in a way that things are very cut and dry as far as what you're going to be focusing on for a particular period of time. Your energy. Again, not something we always think about, but it is very important. You only have so much gas in the gas tank. You've got to refuel yourself, you've got to rest, you've got to recover. Entrepreneurship is, although it is a marathon and it could last your whole career if you wanted to, it's really a series of sprints. Importantly, when you've got an important meeting, an important presentation, you've got a key, maybe it's a sales presentation, or you're going to be meeting someone that could be very important or very helpful to your business, and you've got 15 minutes or you've got 30 minutes. So you're going to prepare a presentation, you're going to get ready for a meeting, maybe you've read a book about this person you're going to meet with, and you really, really need to nail that moment when it comes. So you should be doing everything you can to prepare for that moment, but as soon as it passes and you've gotten the result, you need to take a moment to relax, just to kind of calm down, really think about what was the outcome of that moment, of that high stakes moment. And then the jogging component of this is between those key critical moments, there's time where you're going to be able to brainstorm and think creatively, but leading up to that big presentation or that big event, you need to be on your A game. We all have a gas tank, we all have a limited amount of effort we can put in any one day, in any one week, in any one year. Pace yourself. It's going to be a long journey, so you want to make sure you have time to refill, time to recharge, and then you know when it's time to work. Your thinking process. Understanding your method of arriving at the decisions that you make, and also understanding the process that others arrive at the decisions they make, the things they say, the way that they treat you, the way that they treat others, and the way in which they make really important choices. So if somebody is going to say invest in your company as a starter, as a venture fund, or as some seed money, it would behoove you to think about how does that person approach the funding process? Or if you're going to sell something to your first prospective client, what is the decision process that this person goes through to evaluate my service or my product so they can make an assessment and make a decision? There's a lot of uncertainty when you deal with entrepreneurship, and so understanding how people think is a way to reduce some of that uncertainty. We all come with, this is from psychology, our biases, our fallacies, our blind spots. if I walk around DC where there are a lot of government agencies, and I go to some networking events over lunchtime, and I ask people what they think of my very out-of-the-box entrepreneurial ideas, the people that I'm talking to might not have a lot of feedback for me because they're working in government agencies. It's not a bad thing, but what they're used to is they're used to an environment that is not where people do not go way off on their own and completely start something new. They may have advice, but they may be a little bit skeptical because they've never done it. The people that are around during the daytime haven't done it either, and they don't have a lot of information. So it would be different if I, say, went to a city or an area of DC or the city where everybody seemed to be doing their own thing, and then I would get a lot of different type of advice. So you have to think about who's giving you the advice, the context, what that person's knowledge base is, and why they're telling you what they're telling them. That's out of their filter. So your job as the entrepreneur is to take the filter and the perspective of many different people and fuse them together, pick and mix and match who's saying what and what applies to you so you can get the best value out of the feedback you're receiving. Your understanding of your own thinking process and of other people's thinking process is more important than almost anything else. Because if you don't understand that, you're more likely to wander around, make poor decisions, make choices that don't align with what your next step should be, and you'll find yourself lost in the process. So understanding your own self-awareness thinking process and understanding other people's thought process. Your people. Some of the most important and valuable people to you are going to be people that are willing to mentor you and to teach you new things or the things that you don't know. My impression of a business mentor before starting my own process was that this is someone that's going to sit with you, that you'll be able to, kind of like in university or in high school, you have a guidance counselor, you set an appointment with them, and you can talk about whatever topic you want. I found that people often won't mentor you unless they have a reason to mentor you in entrepreneurship and business. That's because in an academic setting, you're paying for their time. So if I requested a 30-minute meeting with a professor or with a guidance counselor, somebody's paying for those 30 minutes that I'm meeting with them. But the difference is that no one's paying your mentors to meet with you, unfortunately. So the best way for someone to mentor you is if you give them a reason to. So if I'm starting a business and I talk to somebody else that has been doing that in that career field or in that industry for 20-something years, they may just take an interest to me because they know that the information they're passing on I'm going to find it valuable and I will use it for something. But if I am interested in meeting with someone that has just nothing to do with what I'm into or interested in, they're going to have less of an incentive to meet with me. So try to surround yourself with people that really have some sort of a vested interest in helping you for one reason or another. You could have, let's say that this is before you start your business or your company. Just take this away because you don't have it yet. Think about the people that you see on a weekly basis. There may be somebody that you know from your graduate school or college, or you coach a sports team, and one of the other parents happens to be in a particular field. It could be anybody. It could be someone who's your neighbor. It could be a family member. It could be someone you haven't talked to in quite a long time that you're friends with years ago. But all of a sudden, when you start your business, that person may come out of the woodwork because now they have some interesting input that you can use. Role models this is an interesting category. Role models that you look up to that you will probably never be able to meet, at least in the near future. These could be people that they've had books written about them, they're on major news stations, they could be very famous people. And chances are, if they're that prolific, there are going to be a lot of YouTube videos where they're speaking or being interviewed. And if you watch either read the book about them or watch the videos where they're speaking, you can pick up little tidbits of of knowledge that they've accumulated. Little sayings, little stories, little phrases. And if this is someone you look up to, really listen to what they're saying. You may find that they have a little quick story or 1 or 2 sentences about something that happened to them that may change your belief system about what you're doing. And so it's up to you to find that. If you become an entrepreneur or start a business, you will probably be doing a lot of networking. You may meet some new people that are around your age and your level of experience in your field. These are people you want to just get to know them and pick their brains a little bit and exchange ideas. You can get all kinds of information from people who are in the same place you are. So don't isolate yourself. Also, when you come across a younger person who's younger than you or is not just younger but is earlier in the process than you, no matter what walk of life they come from, pay it forward, give back. You're very fortunate if you have people that are mentoring you. I'd say it's your obligation to give advice or mentor other people just as you have been mentored to help you get to where you are. Your knowledge. We all come with certain levels of experience and certain knowledge when we start our entrepreneurial process. You're going to have what you've learned in a formal school setting. You're going to have what you have learned on the job in previous careers, internships that you've worked in. Your interpersonal and your social interactions, your skills that you've developed. So if you've done a lot of networking or a lot of public speaking, sales presentations, you're going to have developed a certain acuity towards understanding the interpersonal dynamic. A lot of marketing, sales, business development roles, you kind of learn this as you do it. Being more self-aware of what you know and what you don't know, and being able to say, I've identified an area that I know that I don't know much about, so when I have to cross this bridge, I'm going to ask an expert, or I'm going to ask somebody that really knows this topic, so when I take a step in that direction, I know that there's credibility behind what I'm saying, not that I'm making something up. That's the last thing you want to do. Figuring out what you don't know, whether you need to know it or not, learning it as fast as you can, synthesizing it with other things that you've learned, and applying it in a concrete way that moves you forward quickly. That's also a key skill, is applying what you've learned. Your skills. If you think back to when you were much younger, you were a teenager, you were a kid, you were in your first years of college, what were you just naturally good at? Legos is a good example. If you, as a kid, like to play with Legos, ask yourself, what's the adult version of that? Not just architecture, engineering, putting things together, but maybe instead of putting together Legos, you're good at putting together ideas together so they fit and become something greater. Or you could be good at putting people together in teams. It could be putting a website together that has many different parts and rearranging the parts in different ways that allow them to connect to each other. So what is the grown-up version of all the skills and all the things that you really enjoyed and you liked to do when you were younger? Look at how those skills translated to what you chose for your early part of your career. Create an inventory for your skills, and when you can, surround yourself with people that have complementary skill sets, not just opposite skill sets, but people that really complement you. If you are strong in sales but weak in marketing, or if you're strong in idea brainstorming, but you just don't know what to do next with your idea, or you don't know how to commercialize it. Find people with a complementary experience and skills and knowledge that can help you to move forward. Again, identify what it is you need to know, learn it as quickly as you can, and implement it. You're always going to be, if you're going to be successful in entrepreneurship, it means that you're always going to be operating out of your comfort zone. And that could range from anywhere from slightly out of your comfort zone to way out of your comfort zone. You may do some things that you think are the silliest things in the world and you just don't identify with. But if you don't do them or you don't try them, you'll never make that next step. So just be prepared to get way out of your comfort zone, but do take it a step at a time. financial resources. Before you start putting a significant amount of time and effort into something, I would do a quick inventory assessment of your financial resources. When you put your time into something, you're giving up time to do something else, which is your opportunity cost. And oftentimes, your opportunity cost is making money or generating income, doing another job, a part-time job, or something that you do a few hours a week. Understand where you're coming from your personal finances. If you have a little extra money to pay a few people to develop a website or a marketing piece, figure out what you should be doing yourself and what you can hire other people to do. Your interpersonal skills. Your interactions with people when you tell them you've started a company or an entrepreneurial venture take on a new layer of complicatedness or complexity when you speak to people. What I mean by this is, if I were a full-time MBA student or if I was working in a company, say, doing marketing, my conversations when I meet new people will be, or old people that I know, will be pretty straightforward. Hi Glenn, what are you up to? Oh, I'm full-time at Hopkins. In the MBA program. Oh, so what are you doing after business school? Oh, I'd like to do X, Y, Z. Okay, that's pretty good. Good luck. I hope it works out. Or I'm working in marketing. Oh, where are you working? Oh, I'm working in this company. Oh, that's great. How do you like it? How long have you been doing it for? How did you get the job? Oh, that's neat. That's pretty good. Now, when you tell someone you're starting a business, it sometimes, depending on how well this person knows you, introduces what I call the question gauntlet. So, if you tell someone you're starting a business, sometimes this happens, is you immediately get a gauntlet of questions thrown at you in a sequence, and how you respond to these questions determines how the person evaluates you or judges you according to where you are in your process. So if I said I'm starting a business, and then the next question is, well, what's your product? And I say, well, I'm still thinking about it. Then this person thinks, oh, well, he's very early in the process. So it sounds like this is kind of a hobby. It doesn't sound real. So I'm not going to treat him as if he's doing this for real. It's just a hobby. Good luck. Hope the best. But if someone asks me what my product is, and I already know, and it's on the tip of my tongue, this person is going to take me more seriously and may be able to help me in a real way, or give me real advice instead of just thinking that it's some sort of a hobby. So just get ready. Two of the ones you need to be ready for are, what makes you different than something similar that they've heard about, they've read about in the newspaper, on TV, or are you like, is your business like this thing that I read about online once? Because that's the only frame of reference I have. So you have to be ready for these questions, which sort of seem unexpected, but it's perfectly normal for people to ask these. Your interpersonal skills. Again, I would suggest that depending on the type of entrepreneurship that you're doing, the context slightly outweighs the importance of content. In an academic setting, my relationships with my professors and how I get along with them is important, but it's not nearly as important as when I turn in a paper, what's the quality of the work. When I deliver a presentation or submit an assignment, what are the words written on the paper that actually fulfill the assignment? That's what I'm going to be judged on ultimately with my grade. There is a small class participation grade, but in a business setting, I can always go back and change some of the words later. But if I am not a good listener, if I don't demonstrate that I'm interested in understanding the other person's needs or understanding what it is that they're in this for, they may write me off and decide they don't want to work with me. So it doesn't matter what my content is. If I've written a 30-page report, but I've said something that causes my counterpart not to want to work with me, my 30-page report, however great it is, isn't really useful. So if you're inventing something, if you are creating a new invention, then the content, meaning the diagrams and the specifications of the invention, has to work. But if you're going to turn that invention into a commercializable and scalable business, at some point, whether it's investors or a manufacturer or partners or people you want to make strategic alliances with, you're going to have to interact with people at some point. Even if it's somebody you're going to hire. So if I make a website and my goal with the website is to get 1,000, 5,000 users to my website, I may never have to talk to them ever, the users. But if I want to hire people, I'm still going to have to talk to somebody. And I want to come across well so they want to work for me. Not just hiring them and not understanding their values and why they would want to do this work. So I would say that context often happens right in the moment. It's a snap decision how people evaluate it, whereas the content is something that can always be worked on later. Dealing with some of these interesting things that come along with entrepreneurship, the interpersonal skills. One of the most important is being able to handle criticism and taking it very well. If someone is being negative towards you, well, you have to distinguish between constructive criticism and non-constructive criticism. Some people have very direct, very blunt, don't beat around the bush type personalities, and they will tell you very unapologetically all the things that they believe you're doing wrong. However, what you could do is ask them, how would you do this the right way? It's like, now that I know what I've done wrong, how could I do this a better way, or what's your opinion? But if they're saying things that are just not helpful for you, you have to know that you just have to not listen to them. So distinguishing between constructive and non-constructive criticism is important. If someone is negative or a skeptic, that's okay. You just have to respect that. Don't let it bother you. The worst thing you can do is let what somebody says bother you from a personal point of view. You can't take any of it personally. If I worked for a huge technology company and I'm doing a demo of a completely new product that we just released, and then I take it out to the market and I get lots of feedback, I didn't really design the product, it's not my company. At the end of the day, I don't really care what people say, we're going to have our engineers go fix it. The problem is that when you design the product and it's your baby and it's your product, it's very hard to separate yourself from the kind of the business aspect of it or the idea aspect of it and you. So separating you from your product can be hard, but think about how you personally take the feedback that people say and whether or not you react to that. If there's somebody that you'd like to meet or you reach out to a few times that has a really great perspective, but they don't return their emails or you just don't hear from them, maybe try another way, give them a phone call, see if they're going to speak at a conference or an event, and if not, just find somebody else. There are too many other things you can be doing with your time than worrying about not being able to reach somebody. Responsiveness and responsibility. These are key ways of thinking and behaving. If you demonstrate to anybody in your ecosystem, your potential partners, your potential investors, your potential customers, your potential employees, anyone who's mentored you or come out of the woodwork to give you assistance, demonstrating that you're responsive and responsible, you're going to get back to them quickly, and you're going to do what you say that you're going to do, and you're going to follow through on your commitments. When you show people that you are loyal to them and that you respect what they say and you follow through, the people will open more doors for you. They'll trust you more, and that will open more opportunities. If you don't, people may have a little bit of a I'm not sure approach to your venture and you. They won't know if they really want to be more involved with you because you haven't demonstrated a certain level of trust building with them. So being responsive and responsible makes things easier for you and for the people you work with. Your public image. For example, redesigning your LinkedIn to reflect that you are now a business owner, demonstrating if you've worked a few different places, what they did. What were the results of what you did, and what did the companies you work for do? Rather than just listing your skills as if you were going to be applying for a job, or let's say if you're applying to a job, you can almost assume that a hiring manager or a supervisor is going to be looking through your LinkedIn to see your skills. So now your audience is, instead of a job applicant audience, an HR or manager audience, it's going to be a wide range of other people, but you want to present yourself as somebody who's a business owner, because you are. And you want to present yourself as someone who is trustworthy, you're credible, you're responsive, you're responsible, and you can clearly communicate complicated things in short bits that people can understand. So just look through any social media you have. You want to think about how you're branding yourself, and if you create a bio, if you've never written a bio for yourself before as an entrepreneur, it will be an interesting and it could be a challenging process, because now you're talking about your mission and your vision and your values more than just what you've done in the past. If you take on business partners, you will, one or more business partners. There may be some cases where it's best for you to do your project or your venture completely on your own, and there may be other scenarios in which it makes a lot of sense to have another person. It may be too much for one person to do on their own. You'll definitely want someone, if you're going to choose one business partner, to have someone with a complementary skill set that is good at things that you're not good at, and that can see your blind spots, and vice versa. You want to make sure that the two of you agree that if you have a disagreement or an argument, that you're not going to move forward in any aspect of your business until you resolve the situation. Forcing yourself to come to a resolution is better than putting something to the side and let it brew for later, or let it cause a problem at a later time. It's helpful if of the two people, one is the business expert or has business expertise, the other person has more of a technical or product expertise. It's very rare that you find somebody that has both, and when businesses and products get a little bit more complicated, the knowledge you need to excel in each one also becomes more in-depth, and having two people is extremely helpful. Over time, if you have a business partner, you'll learn to work together with that person better, and you'll learn teamwork. You'll learn how to complement each other without stepping on each other's toes. Although at the beginning that might happen, that's okay. So now, beginning your entrepreneurial journey, think about what are your long-term expectations, what are your short-term expectations, how willing are you to go through the difficult times. Starting a new business is very exciting at the beginning. Registering for a company is very exciting. You have your incorporation documents fresh in hand, you have a new website, you have a new email address, you get to tell everyone you know you're starting something. You get really emotionally excited about it. But then a few months later, when you figured out you have no idea where to start, or you have no idea how to deliver your service to the customers you want, it's easy to not to be so excited. So how will you approach the long-term planning and dealing with the ups and the downs, or disappointments, but also the celebrations of overcoming challenges? So thank you for watching this video. This was the first presentation of the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School Innovation Factory Entrepreneur Development Program, EDP. This will be published once a week during the fall 2015, and this is an 8 series lecture program, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me, Glenn Alpert, at edpjhu@hotmail.com, and I look forward to seeing you at a future Innovation Factory event. Thank you.